Hi, my name's Paul Kearns. I'm a director at OMR Group, and I'm here to give you a very short and simple introduction to organisational maturity ratings. It should take about 5 minutes. Whether you appreciate Dilbert's humour or not, there are two very serious points here. One is that employees are not an asset. They can leave you tomorrow and there is no residual value. So at OMR we tend to regard people as valuable human capital. The second important point is, where do they feature in your thinking? Are they 9th on the list or 8th on the list, or where? When managed maturely, people should provide excellent returns for you, themselves and society. An organisational maturity rating starts to say how good you are at managing your human capital. Human capital management is a long-term game, so one of the best ways to explain what it's all about is by looking at a long-term industry like pharmaceuticals. Here we have a slide from the inaugural investors presentation by Jean-Pierre Garnier when he became CEO at GSK. And he had a very simple but stark message. The costs of drug development was outstripping GSK's ability to produce new product approvals. And if the business carried on like this, it would eventually go out of business. This is a problem that still affects the pharma industry today, with many of the largest pharma companies struggling to get enough product approvals out of their human capital. So why was Garnier's number 6 priority, not number 1 priority, about getting the best people? Maybe he didn't value people as well as he could have done, and certainly in terms of strategically supporting the business in the long term. Maybe he had somehow missed the opportunity that this presents. This is what organisational maturity ratings are meant to predict for your business. Toyota, which in this league table makes slightly more units than General Motors, is 3 times the value of General Motors. Its market capitalisation is 3 times that of General Motors. The big question an investor has to ask is, how can that be? How can two companies roughly the same size have such a huge difference in valuation? In very broad terms, one of the key issues here is that Toyota sees human capital very much as an integral part of its business strategy. And again, that's what an organisational maturity rating does, is assess the extent to which a business integrates human capital strategy into its business strategy. Even well-respected car companies like VW, which make very, very good profits, are missing out on an opportunity. If we look at margins, VW is targeting a margin of more than 6%, whilst Toyota is already producing 8.8%, and even Hyundai are producing 9%. Is this something to do with the way they manage their human capital better than VW? We could ask similar questions about all sorts of companies, whether it's the Toyota, pharma, banks. Why is Goldman Sachs' value per head so much bigger than its competitors? A lot of it's down to its very, very sophisticated human capital management processes. Why are some banks still mis-selling like Lloyds 5 years after the global financial crisis? Because human capital issues take a long time to resolve. The culture of banks has to change, and it takes a long time to change. So the more we can predict what culture is required for the long term, the more likely we are to be running a successful business. The first prototype for what is now an organisational maturity rating goes back to at least 2005, and at that time it was targeted mainly at the HR profession, the HR community. And the HR community did not pick up on the idea, and today OMRs are directed very much at investors and very much at CEOs and CFOs. These are the people who should realise the true value of human capital and actually integrate it into their strategic thinking.
An organisational maturity rating, or OMR, is based on 2 scales. Here we have stage 0 to stage 6, which looks at the organisation's attitude and view of its human capital. Obviously, the lower down these stages, there's a very limited view of what human capital can do for the business, where at stage 6, an organisation like Toyota builds in human capital strategy into its whole system thinking. So what OMR does, if we look at the scale below, is to mirror this managerial scale and immediately link it to the same scale that is used for a typical credit rating. So on this basis, Toyota would get a AAA rating because it's at stage 6. If we take all organisations around the world and ask where are they on these scales, the skewed distribution curve shown at the top shows that the vast majority of organisations are actually very immature when it comes to thinking about human capital. This also means, in credit rating terms, just as a business that is nearly insolvent is unstable, a business that does not fully utilise its human capital is less stable than one that sees its human capital as part of its whole system.
Thank you very much for listening. We hope this gives you an introduction to what OMR is all about, and if you have any further questions, please get in touch soon.